Aaron Shaver, we meet again.
Snarf. What are we going to do today, Brain?
Yes. Well, so we got to do the chit chat part first, and today I'm sure you realize is National Superhero Day.
Yeah, but yesterday was better because it was National Prime Rib Day, and that's one of my favorite things. I'm sorry.
I'm easily distracted.
I distracted you with beef.
I'm easily distracted by prime rib. What's your favorite superhero and why?
Oh,
I mean,
man,
I'm bad
at this. I'm bad at this kind of thing. I don't know very many of the superheroes. So I'm gonna pick Aquaman.
Aquaman. You might have stolen mine. I think both you and I, it seems like in the field we're in, that it's a cliche that IT people love superheroes and superhero movies.
Sorry to disappoint.
Yeah, I fit into that same category. Like Aquaman, just because he's so obviously lame and limited. You know, I might have gone with the Wonder Twins. But it's like,
see, I was saying Aquaman because Jason Momoa and I have so much in common.
Oh, got it.
Like as far as like our physique and our
the amazing set of hair, all that stuff.
Yeah, we're basically the same person.
I'm with you. I might have gone with mine's probably Underdog or Captain something old and really like, how is this a superhero? Captain Caveman, maybe, you know.
So here's my issue with superheroes is I fall asleep 5 minutes into any TV show or movie. Sorry.
So you're not up to date on the entire Marvel, you know, the latest twist and turn in the Marvel universe. Okay.
No, I have a spouse and 3 children for that. They keep, if I have any questions or they're all over.
What's going on? What's this about again? Okay. Well, today will be somebody's superhero. By
Captain Directory Services. That's you.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, here we go. Onto the real meat, onto the real prime rib of the conversation. See, I did 2 callbacks right there, all in one. Okay, so here we go. Wow. My callbacks are as good as my dad jokes. They're sketchy. Yeah, so we talked last week. We were talking about, you know, why does identity management at large, that field, why does it suck so bad, and what we can do about it. And we resolved that I think that we didn't solve it, so therefore everybody would be punished by 3 or 4 more discussions around subtopics. I'm gonna drop here. I'm gonna put this right in the perfect place to talk about it.
I would flip you off under the screen, but that might be inappropriate for our viewership. They're sensitive.
Yeah, so we were talking about this right here of identity and access management service components, and I think our resolution was that we're going to dig back into some of these topics, and in particular, it's how to make directory services less bad. The bottom right hand, you know, it's over on your side. You got to point it. It's the
this one.
There you go. Right here. That one. Directory services is the one to talk about today. And so normally I lamely hand it off to you and say, I don't know, Aaron, but what do you think about it? But I'm going to come strong on this one because as it turns out, way back in the day when I did actual work for a living at some point, the thing I was in my career was that I was an Active Directory admin, you know, had my Microsoft certification and built and managed big Active Directory networks. And I'm going to come out and start with, we can get all esoteric or theoretical on this one, but the reality of most companies that exist today is that we don't have to talk about directory services so much in abstract, I don't think, because if you're any sort of sizable company, you have a directory technology and a perfectly good one at that, and it is Microsoft Active Directory. And so we can start with the first item in the bucket being your directory strategy. You can have other pieces of it, but the core of it is probably your Active Directory strategy, because you're going to have one of those. Whatever else you build upon it depends. But we start with, what's my strategy for Active Directory? My directory hygiene is, what is my Active Directory hygiene? And we kind of build around that. Respond.
Well, I don't know that I can disagree with you as much as I'd like to, because this is probably the area I'm the least qualified to speak authoritatively. I've never like sat on that side of the table other than a short stint in healthcare, where the directory services part felt like it was super important to me, because other than having enough information to send you a bill, I'm not sure in a service provider that we care that much. Like you have circuit IDs, and so like I need a billing contact, but like
Right.
I don't want your social security
That's
number.
in
I
my
don't.
CRM. Yeah.
Yeah, that feels like that's not like an identity thing to me.
Right. Got it.
So I'm gonna feign. I'm gonna attempt to have reasonable opinions about this thing.
No, but
But
people don't like when you have reasonable opinion. Okay. Anyway.
well, I think what they're gonna like is to see how dumb I am about this.
Okay.
So for, this is probably uneducated, and you're gonna give me the like, well, this is why this is important. But like, I feel like directory service is out of your lane. Like, why? Like directory services is like my name and my address and what
Hmm?
office I sit in and desk I'm at and phone I have assigned. And
Who's my boss? What department do I
why
work
the
in?
heck are you doing that in a Active Directory?
Yeah. Well, we're doing it in Active Directory. And before I answer, I'll be Socratic, and I'll say, well, if I'm not going to do it in Active Directory, where might you presume? Is it because those things don't matter in a company to know them, or you think they should live somewhere else? And if so, where?
No, I think it matters. How else are you going to hook your Jabber client to your, you got to, like, I get this idea that like we'll have this centralized database that has pristine directory information about everyone, and that will lead to all this automation and integrations. And I just don't understand why that's an IT thing, other than that it didn't exist
Right.
and we needed it to federate systems, and so we just took it on. But that like this feels like somebody else's job to me.
And somebody else might be who, Aaron?
Well, I'm going to say human resources,
I know you're going to say human resources. I wanted you to say it before I did. Yeah.
because it's like we have people who that manage people, and I
Human
don't.
resources. Maybe your job has something to do with humans.
Well, in this, I'm sure not everybody agrees with
Yeah.
this, but like I've had real bad experiences in my career when I get too far outside my lane.
Right.
Like I'm not educated at the thing I should be working on, and I'm like kind of diluting the whole company and the whole experience when I'm taking over someone else's responsibility. And this
Yeah.
feels like that thing to me. See, I pointed
Okay.
at it
I'm with
correctly.
you. And I will say the reality, and I've in companies, I've sort of both echoed that charge, but also built the systems on the back end to
Sure.
make the right thing happen anyways. And the reality is that human resources in your prototypical company is super important. As I said last time, to the part that's going in our lanes is collecting the information that I might be smarter about when you started working for us and when you stopped working. I'm going out of my lane when I try to be smarter about when those things actually happened, or that I in IT would know who your boss is better than human resources
Right.
should know who your boss is.
Mhm.
But that's sort of like data ownership versus systems ownership. Because what I'll say also is
Oh,
that,
dude, I'm gonna pause on that just a little bit. Yeah. It's data ownership, data custody versus system custody. And
correct.
and,
And
and I
so,
think we mix the two together.
yeah. So should I be smarter than human resources about the contents of the fields? Heck no. And there will be other departments that come into that as well. And even if payroll is a different department than human resources in your organization, payroll should be smarter than human resources about what kind of how are you paid as an employee, and when did you start, when did you end? Payroll should be the smartest of anybody about starts and stops of
Will you allow me
employment.
to ask some dumb questions about
Please,
this?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I'm not a big AD guy. It doesn't light my fire, to be honest. The no offense to AD
No, I
people, but
get
like
it.
I just
It's like a
I
Microsoft. It's like a
no,
30-year-old
I'm not saying that.
Microsoft
I'm just saying
technology,
like I
man.
feel like we could do better. And I get a little
Uh-huh.
idealistic about technology.
Yep.
So every user in Active Directory gets a unique identifier,
Correct.
right?
Sometimes more than one. But go ahead. Yeah.
No, and I'm not even talking about
Every user
like
object. Yeah.
I'm not even talking about their username. I'm talking underneath that, right? Is like a 128-bit globally
There's
unique
this, yeah,
identifier, right?
GUID. Yeah. Globally unique
Yeah.
identifier. Yeah.
Yep. Instead of like trying to pull in all this data and get like this one ring to rule them all, why do you not put that GUID into like some metadata field in
Yeah.
payroll and in HR? And then I'm asking a long question here. And then do things like if you haven't received a paycheck in 3 or 6 weeks or whatever, your identity becomes disabled, or I don't know, something like that, so that you're
Yeah.
not always waiting on these like manual, like, well, payroll never told us the person got fired. Well, they got fired because we're not sending them money anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, why don't you do stuff like that?
Yeah. And I think your difficulty in understanding this, I think I understand. And I think
Yeah, please.
it's built in your background of microservices and APIs, which
Yeah.
is in the world of microservices and APIs. I make the thing that is
Hmm.
responsible for the thing be responsible for the thing, and I make it
Right.
authoritative. And when I need the data, I go and I just go get it. And what you, I think, underestimate is how terrible integration is and how terrible integration capabilities are in most businesses, of that you're like, write some Python and go query an API
Yeah,
and
this
just
is like 30 minutes of Python coding, and I feel like we're collectively spending like hundreds of thousands of
yeah,
hours sorting out a problem that could just be a data-driven
correct.
solution.
But I will describe it this way and say,
Okay.
you bought Active Directory, and is it monolithic architecture that follows a design pattern that it's existed for? It
Sure.
absolutely is.
Okay, but
But
let's not throw it out.
correct, it's evolved over time, and it's that it's there. And your Active Directory is not going to go away anytime soon in
Sure.
organizations. But by comparison, I've never been in a company that hadn't changed their HR system in the last 5 years, or wasn't going to change it
Right now, today.
yeah,
Yeah,
tomorrow, in the
right.
next five. And I've also dealt with large and small. I mean, it would be one thing if it was that HR system was just one system. But again, we're living in this microservices world where, well, I
Yeah, but
have this HR system, but my
mm,
payroll is a
mm,
whole different.
nah, no. Dude, we've been living in microservices for a long time. Just because we call it
Yeah.
microservices now doesn't mean it's a new thing. And here's what here I'm always gonna bring this up, and this just drives me nuts. Is that there's this idea that we're gonna do bad and then inspect quality back into something later.
Yeah.
And I think that's a logical fallacy. You're never gonna do it. It's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
So if you start out bad, quit complaining. Just accept the fact that it's always going to be that way.
Yeah.
Or take a little bit of the time that you would normally put towards manually provisioning all of these things and start connecting these systems together and letting the systems make data driven decisions, or you're never going to get out of it. And
Yeah.
I don't think we should go to the other end of the spectrum of like, AD's stupid and bad, get over it, get a new system, rebuild all of it from the ground up, because in 6 months your data quality is going to suck again. So if you don't create these feedback loops between systems, I think it's just going to continue. And if you want to keep complaining about it, that's fine. I'll listen. But if you're not willing to do what it takes to create the integrations, why keep complaining about it?
Yeah. Well, and let me respond and say,
No, I'm angry. You can't respond. No.
like, yeah, I hear you. That's my response. So here's the fundamental reality of there is no need to go and solve or resolve corporate directory because that ship has sailed and that decision is made. Like corporate directory for whatever this means inside of the company of I have a
Mm-hmm.
company, I have employees, I have pseudo employees. What's their directory? Their directory
Is
is
AD.
AD.
Yep.
That ship has sailed. That's one, Netscape
Totally
lost,
agree.
Oracle lost,
Novell
whoever,
lost.
Novell. It is
I get it.
so you have it, and it is a system that is because of that has become the most supported. What before I go build integrations, what's already pre-integrated, what do things already know?
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully how to talk to, and so it exists. The fields are there to set, and the why you might, for example, have at least the data element of who do I report to live in Active Directory. Also, while it also lives in the HR system, is to get the people who need to talk to the HR system go talk to the HR system. I have to have this universally spread development capabilities, and I just don't in organization. Meaning, I'm going to support AD because I have to. The how and do I support any sort of integration on whatever my HR system is this year? It's I've been in too many projects where it's like I just even need an API to query this stuff, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, hold that thought for 6 months while we go
Yeah,
find,
yeah,
um,
I'm not trying to minimize that part of it,
yeah,
but like, why are we talking about it then? It sounds like it's just a thing. You accept it, you apply a bunch of manual labor, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. So
yeah.
where do you fall on the Kubler-Ross stages of grieving for directory services?
Yeah, exactly. Acceptance. Yeah. I think that where I see the like, why is this even something to talk about today? I think that it's somewhat in the margins, or it's in like people get wrapped up into that and then they get paralyzed by architecture. So
Can I
it's
pull
like,
on that statement? It's in the margins just a little bit.
yeah, good.
I'm curious why it's in the margins. If there's a problem to be solved and there's money to be made off of it, you would think somebody would make a product to solve this for you. Is it because people aren't willing to pay money to solve the problem?
Yeah, I mean that's part of it. And there's certainly if it's already solved, why are people buying identity and access management solutions?
Hmm.
And here it's in the margins because all of my customers can be a pretty big margin depending on your business, and we've seen
Hmm.
you and I have seen examples, and we know that there are people who start down a path of like I only had usernames and passwords for if I'm a hospital. I only have usernames and passwords for people who show up for work and log in and do work at my place of business. And then everybody's got a customer portal or some web app that customers use
Sure.
or B2B partners. And I end up in this world where I have more people, I have more customers in my directory then I have employees in my directory and I'm still building it inside of Active Direct. Like that
I
doesn't
feel like
feel
if
good.
you have customers and employees inside the same directory, I think you may have made a left turn somewhere.
Yeah, except I'm just telling you that people start at, it may not go all the way to customers, but it's like, well, we have these business partners. What am I going to do? Well, I'm not going to stand up a whole directory. So I'll put them in this like protected part of the directory. I'm just telling you, I've
Is this
seen.
like purgatory?
Yeah, exactly. Or I architect, like I'm still using AD or some sort of Microsofty AD concept, but well, I'm going to stand up a whole separate, in Microsoft's world, a different forest, and it's a customer
Sure,
forest. And it
sure.
doesn't have computer objects in it. It's only, oh, and
Just
as it
user
turns out,
objects.
Microsoft makes a whole,
They
application
do.
directory just for that. And
Mhm.
now it's in Azure and that sort of thing. But again, I say, like that's a whole other, application directory is important, and there are Microsoft ways to solve it. But that to me is where the strategy comes in, and people's paralysis is just sort of it's that I go from a world where everything was defined for me and now it's all wide open, and I
Mhm.
don't have a pattern and people are doing it all different ways. And so I would set off, it's not a simple solve of what should I do for my cloud and or app directory, or user directory space. I mean, we go from there's probably one way to solve it to there are dozens of
Oh,
ways to
there
solve it.
are. Yeah, there are a ton of different ways to solve this, but I think there's some philosophical things that we have to decide on, or the problem's just going to continue to perpetuate.
Yeah.
And part of the the challenge, I think, goes back to your idea around data custody versus system custody. Of oftentimes, I think, in as a technologist, it's like, well, I own the system and I'm responsible for it, so I'm not giving people access to it because I don't want them to mess up what's in
Yeah.
there, which means I de facto become the data
The
custodian as well.
gatekeeper. Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so I made that choice. But then I spend every day complaining about how much work it is and how inaccurate it is and how people don't share information with me. And I don't think we can have it both ways. And one of the
Right.
things about a microservices model forces us is that we decentralize custody of systems and data, and that there's very clear ownership and boundaries over things that I'm not sure is inherent to this natural
Yeah.
centralization in Active
Well,
Directory.
and I'm going to agree and piggyback on your concept and say, if we say it is a foregone conclusion, Active Directory is in the center of my universe and it is the
Mhm.
directory, there are some ripple effects that I need to take on from there. And I I'm going to go through this quickly, but architecture I find is the next stumbling block that people get all wrapped around the axle around. What's my total overall now and forever strategy going to be on
Mhm.
managing different data elements? And I'm going to respond to you and say, I kind of don't care what you do. Like does this data element, is it going to live in the HR system and flow in?
Mhm.
Like, yes, go figure that out. But if you decide to have
That's
it
a
live
today
and
thing, not a forever
like,
thing. Yeah.
don't architect, do architect that, but don't like it's going to take me a year and a $50,000 consulting contract to architect that and
Mhm.
decide it perfect. Like
By that
it's
time, your company's already got 12 new systems that you've
exactly.
missed out
It's
on,
a
and
it's a
yeah.
field in a freaking database. Use it
Mhm.
today for what value it has, and if it needs to change tomorrow or tie into a different source tomorrow, or the logic has to change tomorrow, be agile and figure that out tomorrow. So my first key is like, don't get so wrapped around the axle in architecture. And if you can get value today out of populating one of those fields that you're not using in Active Directory, just do it. And I find the network effect of data, as you know, is valuable. And if I can get it in Active Directory and make it queryable and make it usable by systems, this is a good thing. It builds it multiplies out the
So,
value of my use
so
cases.
to me, data are like trees, right? The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the
Yeah.
second best time is today.
Today.
And the same is true with the data.
Right.
And so, if you're, for me, if you're putting architecture in front of data collection, and you
Oh, and we lost him.
are you
Uh-oh.
there?
Yeah, that wasn't me.
Uh-oh. Our sensors didn't like what I was.
Yeah,
Microsoft
exactly.
didn't like what
If
I
you're
was saying
putting
about
architecture in front of
ahead
data
of in
collection,
front of data collection. I think you've already gone astray.
yeah, no, I'm with you. And so that would be my first point. A lot of people want to talk to us about AD architecture, and I'm more of the, how about you do it? How about you use that data, and that's important. My next second piece is, like you said, you either have to get comfortable with, you are a systems custodian, and custodian means I am making it available to people, and making available means that I provide the vision of, this is the place where you will find this on our network, and here are the methods. It's not talk to me anytime you need to touch or use that. It's, here are the
You're a
ways.
service provider at that
Correct.
point.
I have a set
Mhm.
of keys, and I am here. I use it not to keep you out of everything, but to let you in to the things you need to get into, to describe, well, how's that going to work? And so you need to get good at either shared responsibility with human resources, like, here are the fields that I'd like you to own, and here's, how that's going to work. And or you got to get good at the automation, the in and out of that data, or around that, to say, okay, it's going to live in your custodial system, human resources, or human resources IT team, but like, we'll manage the when updates here, how does it flow into this system, and probably you have to get good at both of those things. And I would say focusing on that versus focusing on perfect architecture.
Totally agree. Oh man, I hate agreeing with you, but I really do agree with you right now.
Million times better. And then
Yep.
this whole, what I say third, I already said this, but the cloud application, and then what I'm going to do there, like, I had that as in the margins, but I'm finding that margin is getting so big that the margin might be bigger than the original problem you
Right.
were trying to solve. And so I'll suffice that by saying, the best time to figure out what your application authentication and cloud authentication strategy, to steal yours, was maybe not 10 years ago, but was 2 years ago. And the second best time to figure that out is
Is today.
today,
Hmm.
because it's going to happen to me organically, or maybe I'll go buy a product, and maybe that'll, like, you got to line up of the, what are the user bases that I need to make this available for? What are the applications they're going to need to talk to? And you got to go make the best decision you can make today, and then double down, again, start getting value out of it.
Hmm.
Go far and deep in integrating that stuff consistently, as opposed to the reality today of, no, as it turns out, I've got 10 different directories because this customer application has its own directory,
And
this
but
partner
I
application has its own.
and I know we have one minute left here,
Yeah.
so I'll try to go react quickly. I spend a lot of time looking forward in technology of where we're going to go, and you commented a lot on, hey, we have Active Directory because it's been there for 30 years, and I think where you and I live is like the fusion of the future and the reality.
Yeah, right.
I would be careful on how much you double down on this idea that we're going to have one ring to rule them all in directory. I think we're going to continue to see the decentralization of directory services into many systems
Right.
across social, cloud, on-prem. And your strategy should include the ability to virtualize and integrate those directories programmatically,
Yeah.
or you're going to be a very frustrated directory services person as time
Yeah.
goes on.
And that, to me, would be, as the people are looking for the, how do I avoid obsolescence and where are things going? I would say in all these, that virtual directory last bullet point of, and we can make that super complicated, but it kind of comes down to, think about logging into an application on the web these days, and it says, do you want to set up a username and password, or do you want to
Or
use
would you
your
just like to
Google
use your
account,
Facebook
or
account?
do you want to
Or
use
yeah,
and here are 4
Yeah.
different directory technologies that will
Mhm.
tie into, and do you want
your
to maybe
your
go in
your
that direction
your
yourself?
your Facebook directory data is probably more accurate than your directory services
You're
at work.
you're not wrong. Well,
All right,
okay. I think we've killed that one dead.
that's pretty all right.
That was okay.
I like that.
Awesome. Well, which we'll decide now, which on the dial of pain, what comes
I think we
next, you
should do
think?
user management services
User
next.
management. That's next week. Okay. Sounds great.
Okay.
Awesome.
All
Good
right.
talk to you.
Later. Bye.
Bye.